Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Out of Prison podcast. This is season 3, episode 2. My name is James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And this is Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
We got a story.
We do. Little did I know prison was included in that when I married you.
Not just prison. You got parole in your story, halfway house.
All the things. Which I have some questions about since it is my story today. So we left off. You were about to go to Shepherd's Fold, which is the halfway house.
Yeah.
That was in your plan.
Yep.
You had gone literally from prison one night sleeping to the next night you were sleeping in one of the nicest houses you had ever seen in real life. Day 2 of being out of prison, you got a job.
I got a job, met my parole officer.
Yeah, met your parole officer, which was the real hard ass. I'll say that quietly. I guess it doesn't matter. But, okay, so you're ready to go. Now, Shepherd's Fold is a halfway house. I did have a question when I was thinking about recording today, because I just don't have any experience with a halfway house. What exactly is a halfway house? Because when I think of that term, I think of people that are on drugs that don't pay their rent, that are just finding an abandoned house and going and living in it.
No, most halfway houses are programs.
Oh, okay.
So they're trying to help people. There's different types. There's some for people like coming out of recovery or trying to get off drugs. There's some for people that just have had, like financial problems and they need some help. They need a place to land to figure it out. And then there's some, when I had Kairos in Birmingham, I worked with the Bethany home, and it was a halfway house, but it was helping women come out of abuse. Like, it was a secret house. Nobody knew. Like, they made me, you can't say where this is.
Yeah. And
they would help women, escape their abusers and put their life back together and then move on. And then there are other ones where they can bring their kids. They're just all over. But they're not all good. Now, all halfway houses are not. Just because they say they got a 501c3 and they're a nonprofit does not make them good, because some of them are rough.
Well, another question, random. Why do they call it a halfway house? You're halfway somewhere?
Well, the idea is it's like a step up. So I didn't want to go to a halfway house. I wanted to go home. Steve was the one who talked me into it. And he taught me it was part of my parole plan of committing. It's not long. What is 4 months? And I remember as I was debating whether he was right or not, it did sound wise. Like, you don't want to get straight out of prison. You don't want to go, he called it going to Mama Nim's house. Don't go home to Mama Nim. Go figure it out somewhere else. So there was a part of me that felt like he was right, but then there was another part of me that felt like, I don't want to do all that. But as I was thinking about that, a couple, 2 or 3 days when we were doing our parole plan, I thought to myself, how many 4 months did I do in prison? And I counted them up, and I did a lot of 4 months in prison. So 4 months is nothing. And it ended up being like one of my best decisions was going there, because it just gave me, I didn't have to go straight out into the world and start trying to figure it out. I had some room to breathe, and, they helped me, get to the next place. And that was his goal. Halfway houses for people coming out of prison are just to help you take the step to get to where you need to be.
Like halfway to full freedom or something?
Yeah. Well, like Mr. Gilbert, who we've talked about on this podcast, he's one of my closest friends, but he's also part of our family. He works for CLCC, which is part of the Foundry. All they do there is they have 50 plus...
Here in Alabama, you're talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They have 50 plus bed spaces for people to come, and, they get a job, they pay rent, they learn how to be responsible, get a checking account, figure it out, and then move on. But their only goal for them is that they become a head of household somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So it's...
Wait, head of household?
Yeah, like you have your own place.
Oh, okay.
Like you're not moving out of the halfway house to go live with Aunt Vicky or...
that you get your own place.
Yeah, that's the goal. Because, everybody needs their own space, their own place. And it's just part of growing up and being responsible.
Right.
And unfortunately, like guys coming out of prison, most of them never learned any of that. Like Chris, he didn't know anything. He never knew how to write a check. He didn't know how to do nothing. I was a little, I don't want to say ahead. Like, I knew how to do like basic stuff, like pay my bills and, I'd write a check. I did all this. I had all that stuff before I went to prison.
Right, because how old were you when you went into prison again?
I was 20, but I had never lived on my own.
Yeah, so 20 is pretty young. A lot of people 20 years old have not moved out yet, I would say.
No, I was still in my mom's house. You know. I had like a checking account. I had to budget my money for what I wanted to spend, and then I had to pay my truck payment.
Right.
That was my only bills.
But your brain wasn't even fully developed.
Yeah, that's true.
When you went to prison.
That's true. But so that's what a halfway house is. And some of them get a bad rap. Some of them should get a bad rap. Some of them are not good. Some of them are there to make a profit. But that was not the case with Joe Brombaugh in Shepherd's Fold. His heart was 100% in it for the men. And I had developed a relationship with him over the previous, I guess, like 18 months because he was one of the volunteers coming in to help us in the honor dorm. And he would teach classes and do stuff like that. I won't say that like we had like a warm, fuzzy relationship because he was... I don't know how to say it. Like, it's not a negative. We didn't click. Like I couldn't see myself going and spending the day with him, hanging out. But like Pastor Bill or Steve or something like that, I could do that.
Well, I think
but he was a good man. I had respect for him, though.
It's just like a basic, everyone doesn't click with everyone. I discovered that being a teacher, that even though, I love all my students and want the best for them, there are some students that just our personalities did not jive. And some were like, oh, this kid is amazing. So I think it doesn't matter the age or the season. You just click with some people and you don't with others. Okay, so you got there, and what was your first impression or thought? Like, what did you do? You check in like a hotel? Or?
No, I was shocked by the neighborhood. I'd already been prepped though. There were a lot of guys that were with me in the honor dorm that were from Birmingham, and they were familiar with Southwest Birmingham. It's a bad neighborhood, and I had 2 or 3 of them. Even the day before, the night before, or the day I left, say, James, look me in the eyes. I know how hard-headed you are. You're stubborn. You think you can do whatever you want. Don't go for a walk in the neighborhood by yourself, and don't even go outside at night. And they were right. It was scary. And it was like one way during the day, but at night you could hear gunshots, you could hear screams, you could hear sirens. It was rough. It was a rough neighborhood. So I was prepared for that, but I told myself, I got to do what I got to do. I ain't in prison. And then I was also taken back by like, it just looked like poverty. Like it was an old rundown house. It was like one of those big old-timey houses like from 200 years ago where there are steps in the middle, no hallways. Every room led to another room, and there were like 40 guys living there.
Okay.
And it was like square footage wise, it would have been like a mansion, but it was, it was run down and decrepit and old. And
yeah, but 40 people living in.
Well, we had plenty of space.
Okay.
It wasn't like tight. Like we weren't like busting at the seams. Everybody had their own space. Most of the rooms were 2-man rooms. Some of them were 3-man rooms. And then there were 2 or 3 like 1-man rooms. And, it didn't take me long to negotiate the one.
Naturally.
I think my second month I negotiated, I need that 1-man room because it was a trip.
But you started in a 3-man room or?
It was a 2-man room. I was in a middle room, which meant that my room was like a hallway. So there was me and somebody else sleeping on the next bed over. But they were huge rooms, so it wasn't like we were close. I had my own closet and he had his own closet. And Joe had told me, go straight and get a lock before you put anything in your closet. And I didn't listen. And I found out quick that they stole everything there. They would steal your toilet paper. They would steal your toothpaste. They would steal your toothbrush. They would steal. They would steal anything that you left laying there, except for a Bible or any kind of book.
Who's they? The other men living there?
The other people living there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it was like I digressed. It was worse than prison in that sense. It was like I had been by that time almost 2 years in the honor dorm, and we had gotten so used to we didn't lock anything because nobody stole from each other. It wasn't like that. And it was like, gosh, now I'm free. Now I feel like I'm going backwards, like on that front.
That is ironic.
It was, I learned that lesson the hard way. Like after I went home and brought some of my stuff back, my mom had been collecting stuff for me for all those years. And she had bought me a leather jacket. Actually, ironically, in the 90s, if you smoked Marlboro cigarettes, you could you keep the thing and mail them in to get points. She had saved up her and all her husband's Marlboro cigarette things.
All her husbands, plural.
Or ex-husband, I don't know. They were divorced and married, and I don't know. They lived together. But she got me a leather bomber jacket.
Is that the same one you had when we got married?
No, I didn't have it. I put my stuff up when I came back. Put my stuff up and didn't lock the thing. I went to take a leak. I mean, gone literally
To the
like
bathroom,
4 minutes. Yes. Yeah. And when I came back, and opened up my closet, the coat hanger that was holding my leather jacket was moving like we gone. And I got
it was waving to you.
I got upset. I stormed in everybody's room. I was pissed because something.
Where was it? How can they hide it that fast?
Somebody stole it. I mean, I don't know. But I did that night at dinner. I said, if y'all steal something else from me, I'm calling the police. And Joe was like, you can't do that. So I said, let them steal something else from me, I'm calling the police. But I felt bad because, like, more violated than just getting something stolen from me, because all these people kept giving me stuff. And the stuff just kept coming and coming and coming. And then when I went home my first weekend to Phoenix City, I came back with my car loaded down full of stuff, and I didn't need all this extra stuff, so I gave it to them. Like, I gave everybody something. Like, I was letting people go through the clothes and the underwear, and and so I just felt violated.
Taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then after that, I learned to keep my stuff locked. I slept on my wallet because I was afraid because there were people that put their money under their mattress, and people would steal it under their mattress while they were asleep. So that part of being around criminals was worse there than it was in the honor dorm. So that was a shock.
That's crazy. I would say my only experience that's like even close to that is I stayed in a hostel when I was traveling in London.
What is a hostel? Is that like where hookers go?
No, James. No, it's like
Oh, that's a brothel.
Yes, big difference. No, it's like a cheap hotel, but it's not really a hotel at all. It's kind of like apartments, but like young students, maybe not just students.
Is that where you had to sleep on your luggage?
People are trying to, save money, like stay. And you can pick like an 8-person room or a 16-person room or 4-2-1. But the more people in the room, the cheaper it is.
How long did you do
and
that?
And they usually have this community kitchen. I did it for 3 weeks that everyone can use, but you have to bring your own sheets. It's like, so it's not the comforts of a hotel. But I remember that, and I was... Gosh, how old was I?
And this was across the water?
I was 22, and I do not travel light. You know, you hear these backpackers going through Europe. That was not me. I had to...
Was this across the water over yonder?
Yeah, this is in London.
London.
England. And I put my suitcases on my bed and slept on my suitcases because when I got there, I did realize...
This is not the best. Yeah.
Good thing my parents don't know I'm here.
Oh, I bet.
Anyway.
So you understand how it felt.
Yeah. I mean, kind of. I don't know if it was bad as where you were, but
it's
a similar idea.
They were stealing everything.
Yeah.
So that caused me like to not, I wasn't bonding with any of them people.
Right.
Like, just let me do my 4 months, get me in, get me out. But my first meeting with Joel, he said, James... Usually when I'm helping someone that's in prison and I'm helping them get out of prison, they treat me like I'm Jesus Christ superstar. They love me. The sun rises and sets on me. But then it usually takes about 2 weeks after they're here that I turn into the devil because I make them do stuff. So he said, please don't do that to me. Because, we're brothers. You're further along than most of these guys. Just be aware of that.
So basically you're saying he had to... just the rules, there was rules in the house, and he had to.
Oh yeah,
what's the word I'm looking for? Like
structure.
Incorporate or keep people accountable to the rules.
Yeah, he was a stickler for the rules.
So what were some of the rules, and what were things that were?
Well, they weren't too complicated, but then some of them were aggravating. Everybody had to have you had chores that you did in the house. Everybody had a chore, and they assigned them like once a week. Then you had you had to pay rent. So it was like $135 a week. They wouldn't kick you out if you didn't pay your rent, but if you didn't pay your rent, you would develop like an account with them where you owed them money. And then if you had too many unpaid rents, you couldn't get a pass. So
a pass for what?
Well, you had to be there Monday through Friday.
Okay.
But if you could get a pass and you had somewhere to go, you had to tell them where you're going. Then you could leave on Friday night, come back on Sunday night by 10:30.
It's like a boarding school.
Yeah, I guess maybe. I don't think I missed a weekend. I left every weekend. I stayed there just as long as I had to stay there, and then I was out.
And you stayed at Tommy's house, Tommy and Brenda.
Yes, they let me do that, And then I think I went to Phoenix City the weekend of Christmas and just stayed a couple of days. I didn't like it. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, so the rules in the house.
So then the other rule was that you had to be in every day by 6, and then everybody ate dinner together. And then after dinner, they had some kind of class or devotional or something. Sometimes Joel did it. Sometimes his assistant, Habby, did it. And then sometimes they brought in volunteers. And then on Wednesday night, they did Alcoholics Anonymous, because Joel was big into that AA stuff, and me and him kind of butted heads about that, because it was he had been an alcoholic, and then he had an experience with Jesus, and then he got into AA, and so that was like that was what he did. And he thought that all of us needed to do that, and I was like, I'm not into all that. Like, I'm into Jesus. Like, I'm not. So we had some back and forth about that, and, I did acknowledge, I know that the 12 steps in AA came from the Bible. I know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But they like sanitized them to make it like it's not a religious thing. And the 12 steps work. But my problem was, I believe things like that need to be seasonal. Like, we do the 12 steps. We admit that we're powerless over whatever, and then we acknowledge, and then we do all the things. But on the end of that, you need to keep going and not look back. But I felt like some of that stuff, not all of them, but some of them, keep that as like an identity thing. Like, my identity is I'm an alcoholic. And I told her I'm not going to be doing all that. My identity is not going to be ex-convict or ex-criminal or ex-drug addict or ex-anything. Like, my identity is I'm a son of the living God. I got to keep moving. So he relented on that. He let me go to church on Wednesday nights because he knew I was going to church, and he knew I was doing, all the things I said I was going to do. Mm-hmm. But I love Joel. It was hard when I was there. Not to do the rules. It was just little things, like I was trying to sack up some money so I could get my own place and do all my own things. And the rule was you couldn't work at night, Monday through Thursday. So I was working in a restaurant in a fine dining. Mm-hmm. So if I worked at lunch, I might make $50. But if I worked at dinner, I might make $200.
Right.
So I was forced to work only lunches Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, but then Friday I could do a double, and then on Saturdays I could do a double, and then they were closed on Sundays unless we had a party. But he ended up, like, slowly over time, like, I would get my boss at Rossi's to call him and say, we really need James tonight, and he would let me work. So he finally pulled me in. He was like, look, you can work one night a week. Just pick the night, and then, because I know that you're not doing my program, and it just seems to me that you feel like Shepherd's Fold is a necessary evil for you. So, and I was like, well, it kind of hurt my feelings. Like, Joel, I appreciate you. I don't want to seem like I'm not grateful, but it kind of is a necessary evil for me. Like, this is something I'm going.
It was just a step for you.
Well, I'm not staying there. Some of those guys have been there for 2 years. Oh. And I'm doing my 4 months that I committed to, and I'm out. It
really does sound like, tell me if this is correct. It sounds like how my house was with my parents when I was in high school. So we eat dinner together. You have to be home by a certain time.
Very similar.
You have to do certain things. But all the while, I'm looking forward to the day that I can move out and save money,
do your own thing.
Yeah.
And it was we also had conflict about my car. My mom had saved her car for me. It had been in her backyard for like 4 years. It was a little Honda Acura. When she got another one, she just saved that one for me when I got out. And so I needed to go get it. And he told me, you can't have it here. You can't have a car until you get $400 in the savings account in the bank and show it to me. And then you have to have insurance and get your license and all that stuff. So,
and that was rules for the house?
Yeah, it was a house rule.
So, yeah, similar.
So, but it was annoying. Like, I got a car. Like, I've got a car. So he gave me some bus passes that first day, these little tokens. And he gave me a copy of the bus route of the Birmingham Metro, whatever that was called, and told me I need to go find a job. So I was like, I already got a job.
Check.
But I was like torn, because I was like, they just push people out the door in the morning and tell them to go get on a bus. I don't even know how to ride a bus. Mm-hmm. I don't know where they go. I don't know how that works. I could figure it out. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I braced myself. I'm not going to be able to get my car from it. I'm just going to have to learn how to ride the bus. But I ended up, the way it ended up, I didn't feel like I was too good to ride the bus. But then people just started wanting to help and give me rides and stuff. So it didn't,
So you never had to write it?
No, and it didn't take me long to, once I started working, to save up my money and then get my savings account that he wanted, get insurance and stuff like that, and to be able to have my car. So it was like 6 weeks maybe before I got my car, but it was like getting out of prison again, because now I'm free. I'm so free. I can go where I want.
Except you have to be back by 6.
Yeah.
When you're not working.
But on the weekends I could go.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
I mean, it definitely sounds like they're like spoon feeding people like how to be a responsible adult.
It was helpful for me, and I needed to do it, but it wasn't, there's nothing inspiring about any of that. You know, it was like, I don't know, it's like, I ain't aiming to be doing none of this.
Right.
I just need to.
What was not inspiring? Because, I mean, to me, it was just, you said it was a 4-month gig.
It was 4 months, yeah.
And that was supposed to be for everyone? Is that right?
It's a minimum of 4 months. They
okay.
wouldn't like kick you out when you got to the end of the 4 months.
But the goal was after 4 months that you be on your own.
That's what it said on paper, but most of those guys didn't do that.
Okay.
There were guys that had been there for years. Or then they would be like house parents or something, where they let them live there for free, but they had to lock the doors at night. And then it was too much. I just didn't want to be.
Did Joel live there? Just curious.
No, there was a living quarters for a staff person.
Okay.
And this was one of those old houses that probably back in the day it was like 4 apartments, 2 downstairs, 2 upstairs.
Okay.
But it had been converted into like this halfway house.
Yeah.
And the one on the bottom to the right was like Joel's office, and then there was like a living room, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and that was where the staff person stayed. And now it was another one. The guy that was the staff person there.
Was that the assistant hobby or a habby?
His name was Habby.
Okay.
And he was a skinny little guy.
Was he Indian?
Haggard looking.
Like
no,
Indian name.
He was like from Ohio.
Okay.
But he looked like a stoner, like he was out smoking weed. He wasn't. But like he had that look, like a hippie kind of look. And
what does a stoner look like?
You know, just unkept, always wearing flip flops.
Oh, okay.
You know, just lounging, you know, lamping.
Dreads?
He didn't have dreads, but I could see him with dreads.
Okay.
You know, carried a backpack everywhere he went.
One of those, I know.
I don't know. I didn't like him, and he didn't like me.
What didn't you like about him?
He was annoying. He was like this, like little spur in my side from the time I walked in there. Like somebody stole my toilet paper the second day I was there. And if you have to use the bathroom, you have to have toilet paper.
Okay, pause though. Maybe some people don't know. I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but James is very particular about his toilet paper. I know in the 8 years that we've been married, I have bought the wrong toilet paper a couple times, and that was not okay. It's only the blue Charmin, right?
That's what I need. Don't be pulling up on me.
So
no
this
Angel
pandemic
Salt.
thing had nothing on Team Jones because we were good on our toilet paper.
We were stocked.
Yeah.
Well, that came from prison.
Right.
I learned that in prison. Like, you have to stay ahead because you never know. You never know when things change.
Yeah.
Like, you can get in a toilet paper drought. Like, I'm going to have mine. I might even sell you a roll. No, I wouldn't do that. But
okay, so
he freaked out on me about the toilet paper and was like screaming at me.
Wait, it got stolen from you though, right?
Yeah, so I went and asked for another toilet paper.
Oh, okay.
And he started screaming at me, didn't understand, and didn't I know, and da-da-da. And I said, don't I pay rent? Don't we pay rent? They don't pay for the toilet paper. La, la, la. And like and this was like my second day, and it was after 10:30 because the doors were locked. And I just said, just give me the toilet paper, and for the rest of my time here, I promise you, I will never ask you for another toilet paper or anything. So just let me get, and I didn't. I went and bought my own toilet paper. Mm-hmm. He was just annoying. He was one of those he was like a saver, like the world's going to end if you flush the toilet kind of guy, because you're wasting water.
The world's going to end if you're going to flush the toilet.
No, we had our biggest argument that we had. Everybody had to do kitchen duty one night, and they had this lady that cooked back there. Like breakfast was like cereal. If you wanted to eat lunch there, you had to make like a sandwich before you left. I don't think I ever made anything there because I worked in a restaurant, so I had it. It was nice what I had going. But then we had dinner, but then we had to clean the kitchen and do all that stuff. And it was my turn to wash the dishes. And when I went and I looked at the sink, it was disgusting. Like it was like teeming with stuff and debris. And so I ran some water on it, got some comment, and started scrubbing the sink. And he came over there and started fussing at me because he said I was wasting water. And I was like, wasting water? Are you serious? And he said, yeah, you don't pay the water bill. So I was like, look, I pay rent. And anyways.
So it's just because you were cleaning the sink?
He didn't want me to clean the sink. So I said, Habby, I eat out of the sink. And he was like, you don't eat out of the sink? I said, look, if the lady makes the food, you give me a dish that's been washed in this nasty sink, and I sit out there and I eat off the nasty dish, then I'm eating out of the sink. So I'm finna clean the sink. Like, we can go talk to Joel. We can do whatever we need to do. But I'm finna clean the sink. And I promise I'll try not to use much water. I mean...
Habby was not having
half
it.
of a cent. No, he wasn't. There was one day, because we had chores, and your chores changed every week, and they were all stupid chores. They weren't like...
Of course they were.
No, it's because there were so many people there. Like, your chore is to vacuum the square in the living room, which took about four minutes. So my chore for this week was to sweep the back steps. Well, I asked Joel, I said, sometimes I'm like raring to get out of here in the mornings, and if everybody's already locked down, can I do my chore the night before? If it's like sweeping the steps, I mean, how stupid is that? So, yeah, James, whatever. Because Joel wasn't like that. He didn't needle you about stuff like that. So I swept the steps. They weren't even dirty, but I swept the steps. The next morning, I'm leaving to go to work, and he comes screaming out of the front door. You didn't do your chore. So I was like, yes, I did. And he said, you get back here right now. You get back here right now. And I said, look, bro, I did the chore. I did it last night. I can't, if I do it again, it's not going to make a difference. I'm going to work. If we have a problem when I come back, we can talk to Joel. The three of us can have a little meeting. But I'm not coming back in there to sweep the steps that I've already swept again. I'm out. And he was just like, but I ended up
getting like stressed and anxious just hearing these stories.
I ended up having a soft spot for him though towards the end, because there was he would like try to lead the little devotions, and he like came up with this pyramid thing. You need to do this pyramid, that pyramid. And I was like, I already did all that. I mean, there's no reason for me to go back and try to do all that again. I've been doing that the last 3.5 years. And so he got aggravated with me. And then Joe was like, yeah, he's one of those people that believes that he's, redeemed by Jesus. And it's like, it was like a cut down, like I was being some kind of weirdo. I'm just not doing all this. Like, I'll participate. I'll share my story if you want to hear it. But, he was like laboring to make people follow Jesus.
Well, not to be okay, but it does sound like the way you're telling this story.
Yeah,
it does like sound like you had major attitude.
I did a little bit, but not. But it wasn't like a attitude like I need to, like I'm better than you, or
because it's the way you're telling it. I mean, no offense, it's just like I don't need you. Y'all are all dumb. I'm doing my thing.
I may have come across like that, but that was not my intention. It was like he was trying to force me into doing something that I've already done. And I was like, Joel, I've been working with Steve for 18 months. Mm-hmm. I've already, like, why would I go back and do that? But towards the end, he had like a meltdown, Abby, one day. And he was cussing and kicking and screaming, like pitching a fit, like Lulu pitches a fit when she gets mad, or like Judah does when he don't get his iPad.
Well, they don't cuss, but yeah.
Well, but he was cussing and screaming. I was like, Abby, what is the matter with you? And he's like, I'm trying so hard, and I'm so tired, and I'm trying so hard to get these men to follow God. So I said, Hobie. I said, Abby, you can't make people follow God. Like, God don't even want to he don't even make us. Why would you try to make us? Like, that's not the way to do it. And even if they do it, they ain't going to really be doing it anyways.
Right.
So relax a little bit. But he was like one of those super spiritual guys, he would talk about spirits and anointings and all. And he fasted a lot, and I just wasn't into all that.
Yeah.
I'm just not, I'm not going in that direction. So, but overall,
it's not your vibe.
It was a good experience. I appreciate Joel. And I did go back and help him. I helped him for years. Like, I used to would stay on the weekends sometimes when they needed a relief person. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it, but
you mean after you had moved out?
Yeah. I mean, for years, I would go back. Even in, like, right before I met you, I was doing something with Shepherd's Fold. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was hiring them, like Kairos.
Oh, yeah.
Like, most of the people, when I had the 2 restaurants, most of my guys came from Shepherd's Fold or the Foundry.
That worked for you, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So, but Joel's a good man. He had a special grace to do his job. His job was thankless. And I remember watching him, like, God, I would hate to do this job. Nobody even says thank you. Like, and I would try to say thank you. And I think he knew I was sincere, but I was sincerely ready to leave.
Yeah.
And I think I was supposed to be there till February. I was supposed to be there 4 months. So little past the 3-month mark, they had a big influx of releases. The parole board just went crazy and let everybody out of prison. And he called me in and he said, James, you're not really doing this program. And I said, Joel, I'm trying to work and I'm trying to get where I need to be. I'm trying to do the program. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you. He said, well, let me finish. Don't you already have an apartment? By this time I did. And I said, yes. And he said, they're letting a bunch of people out and you're already ready to leave. So it's okay if you go. And I was like, when can I go? He said, you can go now if you want to. And I said, and you're going to tell my parole officer that? And he was like, yes. So I was like, bye. I went and packed my stuff and left. I was gone. I went to Tommy and Brenda's house. But I had my own experience of that with working with the foundry. I worked there for 5 years. It's a hard job, but I learned during that time, like, God gives you a grace to do that. Mm-hmm. And it makes it a little easier. But when the grace is gone, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
But Joel's retired now, doing well. I went to church with him for 13 years. Mm-hmm. We were friends. But I think one of the last things that happened before he retired, they took rent up every Friday. And if you lived there, you knew where he kept the rent money. Mm-hmm. It might be a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
And somebody came in and robbed him at gunpoint and threw him on the ground and held a gun to his head.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was just like, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just... But he retired not long after that. And then, Shepherd's Fold's still around, but it's definitely not... It's not what it was then. It's more business now than what it was then. But he's a good man. He's very much a part of my story. And I'm proud to call him my brother. And I appreciate everything he did for me.
That's awesome.
But how can we...
So is there anything else
gears?
that stands out to you? So you're 4 months you were leaving, but during that 4 months... Well, one thing we haven't talked about...
I think we're moving ahead too fast.
Well, what I was going to ask is, we didn't talk about you seeing your family. Like different pieces of your...
Okay, so my first weekend I was out. Mm-hmm. I needed to go and get my car. And then, I had my stuff in my room from when I grew up. Had been packed up and put in a shed, so I had all that. And I needed to see my mom. I wanted to see my meemaw. I couldn't go see my granny because she was in Georgia, and they told me I had to wait on the travel pass thing. Mm-hmm. But what ended up happening with that was she drove to Anniston one early Saturday morning.
Anniston, Alabama.
It's halfway between Birmingham and Atlanta.
Okay. And
we just spent the day there, her and my cousin Boomer and me and Tommy, and it was great. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. But then I went to Phoenix City, and I really didn't want to go to Phoenix City because there was some fear because I was on parole. So any kind of, like if I had EOS my sentence, I wouldn't have been worried about it. But when you're on parole, like somebody can call the police and say you did something you didn't do, or, just make some kind of complaint about you, and whether it's true or not, they can still arrest you.
Real quick, EOS means you would have finished your sentence.
End of sentence.
But you got parole, which means you got out early. So that's why you were so nervous about going back if somebody were to have ill feelings.
I was more concerned about my cousin's family, the one I got in trouble with.
Yeah.
Because there had been bad blood between his side of the family and my side of the family since we got in trouble.
Yeah.
And then I knew he ended up getting more time than I did. But he was the point man with the gun.
Right.
And I knew he hadn't got out. So I was scared. Like, I want to see my mom. I want to see everybody, but I'm just, Phoenix City.
It's like you didn't want to enter back into that world.
No, I didn't want to get back in it. It's time to move on.
But you went there for a little bit to see your family.
We went for the weekend. Somebody drove us down there. I can't remember who drove us down there, but then...
You say us. Who's us?
Well, me and Tom. I still didn't have my driver's license.
Oh, okay.
Because when I went to get my driver's license, they said, oh, no, you got a ticket. And I said, I ain't got no ticket. I've been in prison. And they said, no, it's in Jefferson County, Florida, Monticello, Florida. And I was just like... amazed. That was the ticket that he wrote me for speeding when he pulled me over when they got in a gunfight. So it's like, wow, you would have just thought that somehow that would have got wrapped into that.
That may have been included in the prison sentence.
The prison sentence, probation, fines, parole. But no, I had to send them a money order and pay the ticket, and they had to clear it. took like 2 weeks for them to clear me before I could go get my license. So that was weird. But I think it was Tommy's wife drove us down. We went to my Aunt Sue's house and stayed the weekend, and then drove my car back. Well, he had to drive it because I couldn't drive back on Sunday.
Okay.
And it was fun, but I was like on edge the whole time. I was nervous and scary, and I was telling everybody we're not going to make announcements that I'm here. I mean, there was just a select few people that I needed to see. Mm-hmm. I needed, I was going to be staying with my Aunt Sue and my Uncle Vernon. And that was actually fun because it was the first time I met. They had adopted twin girls, and I think they were 4 or 5 at the time, Morgan and Megan. Mm-hmm. And I'd never been around twins, so they're identical twins too, and they were so cute. And they instantly fell in love with JJ. They always call me JJ. But when we went to see my mom, it was not. It wasn't what I thought it would be, I guess.
How so?
It was just sad and depressing. She lived in the same house that we lived in when I got arrested.
You would think that would be a happy reunion. Why was it sad?
Well, when I left there 7 years before, my mom was thriving, confident woman, doing her thing. Outgoing, doing, Mom was mama.
Like a rock star.
Yeah, but she was like full of life. And everything that happened with me, I think, added to her. Like, she was in like a depressed like funk, and then she fell and cracked 2 of her things on her spine, so she had to retire. Then she couldn't work, and then there was a recovery period, and then during the recovery period she started gaining weight. So she had always been like little petite, and she was proud of it, you know what I'm saying? So mom was a little bit on the vain side, you know what I'm saying?
The vanity side.
But when she gained weight, she didn't want people to see her, so she just stayed in the house. And it was I still don't, I kind of understand that, but
how long did she stay in the house?
For like 3 years.
Wow, she didn't go anywhere?
Only if you made her. Like, after I got out of prison, I made her come to Thanksgiving with me at my Aunt Sue's house, and she didn't like it. But
so she was in the middle of this kind of recluse season when you got out of prison?
Yeah, and then she had got back together with her 4th husband, Jeff, and he was like redneck fabulous. And
we might have to define redneck fabulous for our non-Southern listeners.
Okay, the first place that they got us to live after they got together was a green and white trailer that was about 40 years old, sitting on some blocks on the side of a highway. And
nothing's wrong with trailers.
No,
it's just the location of
optics.
It.
And then he drove it was an orange Volkswagen bus that was beat up, and Mama didn't like it, so he got himself a little Datsun truck that he used to let me drive. And I used to steal the Volkswagen bus sometimes if I want to go somewhere when I was a teenager when they weren't there. He pulled that to the end of the trailer, and that was his shed. So people pulled up in our yard. It was, and then there was 4 or 5 pieces of sod he threw out there. There was a barbecue grill, tires. It was just
making it work.
Yeah, that was.
So is that where your mom was living when you went to go see her?
No, she lived in the house that we lived in.
Oh, okay.
Because they were divorced for 3 or 4 years. But we had a cute little house. I painted everything, fixed it up, fixed up the yards. But
you mean before I went to prison? Yeah.
Yeah, but now going back, that they had turned into a redneck paradise. It looked like a perpetual yard sale was going on.
So you're saying
there.
the house even looked totally different?
Everything was different. And my mom, it was just so hard to see her, and she just cried and cried. Is this real? Is this really happening? You gonna stay here? And I was like, no, I can't stay here. And she was like, why not? And I said, because Jeff has 2 sons, and I know that they're both drug dealers, and I can't be around no drug dealers because I don't gamble in my freedom.
Did they live there too?
No, but they were in and out over there all the time.
Right.
And my oldest stepbrother was like a notorious drug dealer. Everybody knew he was a drug dealer. But he would, let me just say this quick. This is redneck. He had a trailer that he hooked up to the back of his car, to the back of his truck, that had lawn equipment on it, like weed eaters and lawnmowers and stuff. And he would ride around with it so that the police would think he was a landscaper. But he didn't even know how to crank a lawnmower. But no, I couldn't be around it. And that hurt her. But I was like, Mom, I can't be around this. I can't, I'll see you.
You would think that she would understand that.
She didn't. She took it as I thought that Sue and Vernon, my Aunt Sue and my Uncle Vernon were better than her. And I was like, no, it's just there's stability. So I'm going to be staying at their house. I'm not gambling my freedom. Like, if the police were to come over here, something happened, I'll tell them not to come over here. I'm like, Mama, I don't want to be here.
I'll tell them not to come over
I don't want to be here.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you feel, so you said when you went into prison, your mom was full of life and just felt more, I guess, herself. And then when you came out, she was like in that recluse season and broken.
Depressed.
Did you take responsibility for that? Or do you feel like that was because of you and what you did and being in prison?
Yes. She's never been the same.
That's a lot to carry. Do you really? I mean, I just think like...
I don't see it as like a responsibility thing. Like, I'm not... Well, maybe I did for years.
Well, hold on. Flip the script. So, like, would you... Like, if we struggled, would you want our kids to carry that it's their fault that we are struggling? Not. So, I mean, you know, when you flip it like that.
Well, I mean, her getting hurt and... You know, that wasn't my fault.
Right.
But I mean, she was in a bad place already just dealing with me. I mean, and I've said this before, when you go to prison, you take your family with you, but she was more so probably than most people because, how do you say it? Maybe she was a little codependent with me. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it was always like, especially after my brother was gone, I was all that she had. Like, there was nothing else. So,
yeah. But it's interesting to me, and I'm just hearing this now for the first time, just that even to this day, you feel like you carry that as like your fault.
Somewhat. I mean, it was.
That's sad.
I'm forgiven now, and you know, my mom had her own like redemption story after that, and there was all good stuff. Well, not all good stuff. There, good stuff came out of that, but I don't think I carry it like as a weight. Like, it's not, I don't feel like, or that I need to compensate for it, or there's any, because trust me, as the story goes forward, you'll understand, if there was any compensation needing to be made, I made it.
I guess we'll hear about that later.
And I didn't just make it once, but I made it over and over and over. All right, well, where are we going to go from here?
So, where we're going to go from here is, you said you had an apartment. We kind of brushed that. So, you've done your 3 months, 2 weeks, supposed to be 4 months.
Wait, you're going too fast.
Oh, okay. So, where are we going next week with it?
I think we need to, like, next week we'll talk about, you know, like, I was very involved in my church. Then I made my rounds with all the people that were volunteers. I went to all their churches.
Oh, okay.
People trying to get me to come to their church. I mean, it was a lot. And then
they wanted to show you off.
Yeah, and then there was like this Shepherd's Fold banquet that we had, where they were there like supposedly to inspire us, but it was not really inspiring to me. Like, it was hard for me. But there I did actually meet Steve's daughter.
Well, Steve's daughter, who was your girlfriend for a lot of years, right?
Yes, but not at that time.
Oh, okay. So this is the first
So encounter. This was my 3rd day out of prison. I went to Shepherd's Fold banquet. They're parading us through. You know, I had on my new little polo I got from the World Victory Church. I mean, that's what they do at those banquets. They do it. It's to raise money so they can keep their mission going.
Okay.
And I don't know. There was some chemistry between us, and I thought, girl, are you her? I mean, I got like 6.
Are you who?
My wife. Like, I got 6 pages. I got 6 pages in my vision about what my wife's going to be. You need to see is you.
Bow, chicka, bow,
is you the one?
You thought it was her?
I did. No, there was some. And
little did you know.
She had. Oh, that would cause me untold heartache later on. But she had some little boy like holding on to her.
Some little boy. I'm sure he was a grown man.
Her boyfriend. And I didn't care. I was like, if that's my girl, I'm gonna get that girl. But that we'll talk about that later. That ended up, you know, obviously she was not my wife, or I would be doing a podcast with her right now.
Obviously.
And I wake up every day and give thanks to the Jesus for that. But that, and then just, you know, like, there was so much, like, learning how to get out in the world, and a bank account, filing taxes, getting everything. You know, I had to go get an apartment. I had never lived on my own before.
Right.
So I had to get an apartment. I had to do all the things. And then Tommy was trying to help, but he was trying to help too much. And he was finding me apartments that I didn't want. And but we'll get into all that next week. But this was, how do we end this on the halfway house? I wanted to end it on a positive note. This was good for me.
Well, I think it was a positive note because, I mean...
And I would recommend it to anybody coming out of prison. Go to halfway house.
I think it just served you, in fact, of giving you a place to go to kind of start over as an adult and like kind of get a refresher course and get back on your feet?
I had to.
Yeah.
I had to. It would have been. I think if I would have went, because I could have went and lived with Tommy and Brenda, like they would have let me live with them, but that wouldn't have ended well.
Right.
I mean, grown-ups don't need to live with other grown-ups.
And like real life too. I'll end with this. My dad used to like ask people the question, would you prefer 100% security or 100% freedom? And you know, people would answer different things for different reasons, but then he would go on to say, I think that 100% security would be prison because you have somewhere to sleep every night. Wow. Somebody's bringing your food. So, like, you're secure. I mean, maybe not in terms of, but if you have 100% freedom, then, which was you, I guess, then you have to make sure you're working, you're making the money, you're like having that bed to sleep in, you're working for your food, you're doing the, so I think really that was a segue between the security in some ways that was forced security and freedom. Would you say that, the halfway house?
It was the step to freedom.
Yeah. So.
But the problem with a lot of guys is they take that step and then they want to stay there for a little while.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I was tempted. I had some temptations because I stayed with Tommy and Brenda for a little while I was getting my apartment ready. And we'll talk about this in the next one. But they would have let me stay there forever if I wanted to. And I had to make myself not do that.
Isn't that such as life, though? I feel like we all get comfortable in different places we're at, and it's
you can get stuck easy.
Hard to move forward. Yeah,
you can get stuck
when it becomes easy.
Well, interesting fact. When I had Kairos, 99% of the people that I hired were either coming out of the Foundry, Shepherd's Fold, or the Bethany House, and several people that came through and worked with me at Kairos got on this thing called shelter care. It was where they paid your rent for you if you do these meetings. And I think I participated in like 7 different, most of them were women that, you know, they got all their certification, they're paying their rent and all that stuff, and they just quit after that. Like, my rent's paid, I'm just going to sit, I don't even need to work, Mr. James. And there's something about that is it takes away the hunger or the desire to keep going and keep doing better when somebody else is doing it for you. Yeah. And it's
absolutely,
it'll get you stuck. And there was something instinctively in me, I knew that. Like, I have to keep stepping. I can't stop. And I didn't.
I feel like that's a profound truth that's even applicable today to us, to everyone. We have to just keep moving
going
forward.
New season.
Yeah.
New wine, new mindset.
That's good.
Like, what worked last year ain't going to work this year.
New wine, baby.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been one of the funnest ones I think I've ever done because, you know, this was my beginning of my freedom. You know, I'm on the road. I'm on the road again.
Reliving it, yes.
And then we'll talk a little bit about work next week. You know, going into a fine dining establishment and then the drama that went with that and stuff I didn't know. You know, I didn't know what I didn't know. But I learned it. And then there was a lot of stuff about church folks that I didn't know that I found out pretty quick. But anything to add?
We'll define church folks next week.
Let's do that. Maybe we'll put that on the For Real Reel.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See you soon.
Bye-bye. Hey, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. For more exclusive content, head over to our website, timjones.co/podcast.
Yes, you can subscribe by clicking on the Become a Patron button, and that's going to get you access to our For Real Reel, which is very different than the highlight reel. Some very juicy content there.
Good stuff. Or you can look us up on Facebook and Instagram, Straight Outta Prison Podcast.
Yes, that takes the story to a whole new level where you can see some of the people that James talks about in his story and see some of the places that he's been. I've been loving it, and you will too.
Prison recipes.
Yeah, all the things.
Good stuff. We'll see you soon, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Anything out of these videos, please hit the like button, the subscribe. If you never want to miss a recipe or anything I do, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications.